We are going to kick this off with why DREs and adult faith formation coordinators should be working together. Why is that, Deacon Matt?
Because when the team works, the dream works.
Oh, I like that.
No, really, it's just like in evangelization or in the new directory for catechesis, or even the old directory for catechesis. When they talk about evangelization, they talk about what needs to happen to make evangelization happen. And traditionally, we've called that pre-evangelization. So similarly, we need to kind of have a pre-family catechesis setup, some kind of catalyst that will make family catechesis go well. And that catalyst or that setup is we really have to work hard to evangelize mom and dad. In other words, we need to focus on adult faith formation if we're going to have effective family catechesis. Now, how are we going to do that? Because we're going to talk a lot more about adult faith formation in the next block. But in this case, how are we going to do that? And I said it earlier, the teamwork makes the dream work. And that's true here. So typically in parishes, and it depends on the size, and it depends on the budget, and it depends on volunteerism, the level of volunteerism. So all those things are variables. But oftentimes we have adult faith formation over here. We have DRE or religious education over here. Sometimes those jobs are under the same person, a faith formation coordinator for the parish, but many times they're not. And we have two different coordinators, and we need to get those coordinators working together, because the more that they talk to each other and plan together, the more they kind of keep the full picture of the family together, and they can work strategically to try to provide resources and experiences for mom and dad that will help to evangelize them and will enable them later on to feel more comfortable and confident as catechists in their own home. In other words, working a family catechesis program or model. So for whatever reason, part of it's just we're human beings, and we kind of have a tendency, like, we kind of navel gaze a lot, and our scope of vision kind of extends as far as our reach in front of us as we, 360 degrees. But to make this work, we do have to have both adult faith formation and religious education working together in their planning of the year. So when adult faith formation decides, we want to do a Bible study, well, think about how that Bible study might inform parents who are working through or perhaps working through a curriculum with their children in religious education. Can we talk as leaders, DRE, Adult Faith Formation Coordinator, and say, look, that Bible study that you're planning on in September, maybe it's the Bible timeline or whatever it is, let's try to draw a couple of themes that will connect with where our students are in September, or what theme is being featured in that particular unit. That's a good connection there. And also, and I want to send you back to a couple of the 3Ps episode, which was like our second or third episode. It goes all the way back to January of this year. And I want to send you also to we had a family catechesis episode earlier where we talked a lot about this kind of evangelizing and strategizing. And we have to communicate well to our parents to really kind of make sure that we are treating them as adults on their own journey of faith formation, and not just trying to evangelize them through their kids' curriculum, which has been the MO, and it just hasn't worked that well. So let's get our coordinator, our faith formation coordinator, and our DRE doing some planning together. So we got our calendars together, we're looking at events we're doing, and we're looking at ways to make connections, and we're also looking at how can we communicate together, not so as to overwhelm mom and dad, each of us firing off emails all the time to them, but can we strategically communicate to them, say, hey, here's where we are in our adult faith formation part of the year, here's where we are in our RE part of the year, here's some important themes or concepts, here's why this would be important for you. I just did a catechesis episode on it. That's my podcast here for Sadler, and that episode will be live in 2 weeks. But one of the things I kind of drove home in that podcast episode was we have to message in a way that parents understand or adults understand. And the way they know that we're speaking their language is when we can make connections with what's going on in their life. And it starts with how we even talk about the ministry at hand. So if we say, hey, come to an adult faith formation meeting, who cares? What does that even mean? Adult faith formation? I mean, we have a sense of what it means, but it's not compelling. It doesn't answer the big question for most adults, which is, so what? And for adults, as I said, begin to kind of pre-evangelize them, set them up for an encounter with Christ, we have to kind of get into their worlds, see what those challenges are that they're facing, the milestones and the transitions and the events. We'll talk about this in our last block with principles and practices of adult faith formation. But we have to speak to them and say, look, if you put faith first and foremost, it will affect your work, your family, your relationships, your goals, all these things in a positive way. And here's the witness to that. So we'll talk a lot about that in that third block. So that's what I wanted to say. The teamwork makes the dream work. DREs and AFF coordinators, if you're in a parish and each of you is running your own ministry, let's try to get out of those silos. I know it's difficult. I know it's tempting to just, cover your own ground and look at your own job description and not look beyond it. But realize that if you work together, you're really going to be productive and effective at communicating and connecting both with the children and with the parents and trying to evangelize both in a coordinated way. Now, where does the inspiration for this come from? It really comes from a document that Steve's going to pull up here called Co-workers in the Vineyard. And that document, which goes back to 2005, focuses primarily on clergy and lay ecclesial ministers working together. But the spirit of that applies here too. And the point of that document too is to get out of the silos between the ordained and between the lay leadership in a parish or in a diocese. We're saying the same thing too. Get out of the silos and you will be far better, far more successful at trying to evangelize adults when you're kind of coming at them through different angles, religious education, adult faith formation, and trying to connect these two things together. So what we have up on the screen here shows you where you can find this on the bishop's website. It's an easy download. It's a free download, which is great because it's not often we see, this is a book, and it's not often that we see books like this for free.
Things are changing, and these resources are available in print, and you can order these. Some of these resources that are a few years old are still available as PDFs on the website. So if you go to the link that we posted for you and click here, resource for guiding the development of lay ecclesial ministry, you have access to the full PDF, 70 pages, and can go through and check out the table of contents here. You can see everything that's in the book. We don't have the time to go into the depth of that tonight, but just wanted to show you the resource and make it available, help you understand how this might be able to help you in your ministry.
Mm-hmm. So Steve, I've been talking a lot about ministers getting out of silos and communicating with one another. I mean, it's kind of like we've been talking about this on a few shows. To move forward, the church really has to pivot, but the pivots aren't necessarily these huge things. They're really small things that can have huge effects. Like in my mind, it's a small thing as a DRE to have a conversation with the adult faith formation coordinator about how to help evangelize parents. But having that small conversation might lead to some huge effects.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, I'm recalling my time in parish ministry, and there was more awareness about this, about communicating. Are you suggesting the communication would include things such as aligning topics, or, maybe providing adult catechesis on topics that the children are learning about, or what types
Mhm.
of examples do you have?
Yeah, exactly. So both of those, I think, are fair game. One would be to communicate to adults about what's going on in their children's RE, and maybe there's a theme or a concept that we can highlight, and then turn mom or dad to a scripture passage or something that will help them to connect with that topic as well. But also, if there's a way we could connect that theme or concept to, for example, parenting, which both mom and dad are currently doing, or to maybe you happen to know this is a large family looking for those verses that deal with those who've been blessed with many kids, but also the challenges of having many kids. So it's connecting. It's a two-way connection. In one way, it's connecting adults to perhaps a concept that's going on in a children's RE, and then making it more concrete and applicable for their lives as parents. But let's also face it that um, outside of the DRE AFF conversation, we do have adults in our parish that either their kids are grown and they're gone, or they don't have kids. And that AFF person is still going to want to try to identify and communicate with those adults identify what their needs are, what their concerns are, where they are in life. And again, we'll talk about this with best practices and principles in the last episode, the last block here. But yeah, that's one example. Hmm.
So, yeah, what I'm hearing is that we've got different segments of adults in the parish.
Hmm.
We've got adults with grown children, we've got adults with young children, and maybe we've got some overlap of adults who are catechists.
Hmm.
And the important thing is to continue to develop the faith of the adults in the parish, which ultimately can serve the children at home. It can serve the children in the parish classes, as well as can continue to support the faith development of the adults who may not be catechists and may have grown children.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing I want to make sure I highlight, and it kind of alluded to at the beginning of this block, was the pre-evangelization, the setup really involves a lot of listening to on part of leadership. AFF DRE listening to each other, AFF DRE listening to adults in the parish, many of whom are parents, listening to kind of what's going on in their lives to be able to make concrete connections between faith and life and provide resources that would support them. You can't predict, you can't assume or presume. You really have to do the work of getting to know those families in your parish, getting to know those adults, and understanding where they are in order to drive appropriate resources to them.